They don't get it. They don't understand what I'm doing. They feel like I'm just being mean or whatever. But later on, they're going to understand dad was training me to be in sales or training me to convince, realize that I can't just get anything in this world just because I say, hey, I want it.
You're listening to Ice Cream with Investors, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching you how to better invest your money so that you can live a more intentional life. I'm your host, Matt Four, and it is my goal to teach and empower you to remove the roadblocks to your financial success.
All right, Jay, welcome back.
Matt, thanks for having me back again, sir. I appreciate it.
You got it. You got it. Well, you are a repeat guest. We had you back on in September of 2022. One of my favorite people that I've gotten to know in this space, and always willing to take a call and share a laugh, which I appreciate about you, which I didn't say, but I will say now publicly. But we're going to take this a little bit different. We're not going to start with the favorite ice cream. We're going to start with, what is your favorite Buc-ee's treat?
I appreciate the Buc-ee's mug that you have there, and I'm blown away by the way they kind of just, like, you don't see other people posting about, hey, I went to Chevron or Exxon or whatever the gas station is. It's all about Buc-ee's, and I've only been to a couple, and I gotta say they've got these. I don't even know the name of them, and I can't have too many of them because I'm a gluten-free diet kind of person. But they're these lemon cookies.
Okay.
I don't know what they're called, but they're in like a little pint container, and I can have one or two, and that's about it. And my taste buds are killing me because I had one or two. But I'm gonna have to say that because it makes me divert from my much needed gluten-free diet.
Yeah. Have you had, so we were talking about the beaver nuggets before, but have you had the roasted cinnamon pecans that they have that are hot? Oh my gosh, you are missing out, man.
All
Those
right,
things are
all right.
delicious.
I gotta go to Mobile in a couple of weeks, and there's one on the way. And so roast. All right, all right.
There you go. Well, I know
It's
you
been in a
spent some time
while.
in Gatlin. I know you spent some time in Gatlinburg, and that one there is the largest gas station in the world. And so we
Okay.
took the kids there on a trip to, I think to North Carolina. And so then we took them to a separate Buc-ee's on Crossville, which is on the way back home. And they're like,
Yeah.
wait, this is it? And I'm like, this is it. This is the size of a
Oh man.
Walmart.
Yeah. No, we last they were just building that last time we were there. Yeah, in Gatlinburg, and we're like, oh my gosh. And then, of course, I got real critical. I was like, why are they putting it there on the side of the hill? Nobody's going to go to that. And of course, what do I
They do.
know about placement of a gas station? Probably should just listen to the folks who are running Buc-ee's because they're doing
Yeah.
something amazing.
Every time I'm there at that one, it's the largest one in the world, and there are still lines and people dying to get in. So yeah, it's busy.
It's a phenomenon. It's definitely a trending cultural phenomenon. It's I
That's
don't
right.
get it.
That's right.
Maybe they're going to take over for CrossFit as being
Yeah.
the cult following. Which
Yeah.
I mean, what other gas station can you go to and have such a great experience? Like we were talking about how much the managers make there who run those before we started recording this. But if you go in there, like, all their employees are super nice. The bathrooms are super clean. It's like, can you guys scale this down and go everywhere? Probably not, but
Nope.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Favorite
Jay,
Buc-ee's treat.
for for our listeners that haven't listened to the previous episode, give us a high level. Who are you and what do you do today?
Yeah, so real estate investor, financial freedom achiever. I wrote a book. It's called Make an Offer. That hit Amazon bestseller in a couple of different categories, and it's really geared toward that aspiring investor. Back to, and it's a parable. It's essentially our story with some made up parts and names changed to help protect the innocent. But we started investing, actively 2014. Our firstborn was 3 weeks old when we closed on our first rental property. And, I was still working full time W-2 in the technology field. And fast forward to today, exited the W-2. I got the boot I got laid off during COVID, like a lot of folks did, and just took that as a big kick in the pants and opportunity to prove a lot of people wrong, and also just a chance to really focus on where I knew, and the reason why we started investing to begin with was to replace my income, right? And so also host of the W2 Capitalist community, or founder of the W2 Capitalist community, where we help, we empower and help hold people accountable who want to grow their portfolios. And there's nothing like the growth that can happen when you're surrounded by the right amount of people. But not just right amount, but the right kind of people. And, that whole community just keeps evolving as we listen to our members and what they need and what they want, to the point where last year we launched a hard money lending platform out of it, and to help our members close more deals. And so today, what I'm doing today, we still have our portfolio. I've lost track of the deals we're in. I know that's bad to say, but we're LPs in a couple of deals, joint ventures on a couple of deals, and then my wife and I have a small portfolio that's just ours. And other than that, we travel about 6 months out of the year with our three kids that are now 9, 6, and 4. And that we've made some of the best memories. We've checked off about half the states, the U.S. states, and I was told we were talking about this. Yeah, I was probably told is that, hey, we're getting our this while we're home through kind of the winter season. We're all going to get our passports. I don't really know what that means yet. There's talks of maybe slipping over to Canada, but I know, my wife is also teaching our kids French, and she's homeschooling them, or we're homeschooling them. She's doing it, really. And so I can see where this is leading to a trip to France at some point in time. I don't really know. I don't like going out of the States. I've only done it once. It's a great time, but I'm a homebody that now has been broken to that shell with traveling. And we've made some good memories, because we have this thing, like we have this map that we check off states, right, when we travel. And my thing is, if we travel through the state, like welcome to wherever, we should be able to check it off.
That counts.
And my wife's like,
yes.
No. She goes, no, it has to be meaningful. There has to be a meaningful event, or we have to spend the night. And I'm like, what's meaningful to me if we drive through it? But of course, we know who won that battle. And so with that logic of thinking, we've knocked out half the states in the last 2.5, 3 years. That's awesome. That's me in a nutshell. So
you mentioned French. We're actually taking the kids to Paris for the Olympics next year. So we got
mention that.
We got a little Duolingo going on in the house right now to
we do too.
To try to learn.
We do too.
Yeah.
Well, Duolingo, that's very familiar. Somehow I'm getting out of all the lessons. Are you taking them yourself?
Nope. I don't do well with English, let alone a different language. And I'll take a little bit before we go, because I've always wanted to learn how to speak Italian more than anything. Because I think it's a pretty language. But I got the catch up to this morning on what's water, what's eggs, all that sort of stuff.
That's good. Duolingo is interesting. Also, Google Translate seems to work very well. I've got
it does.
A partner of mine. He just built his primary residence, and his entire crew that he used was Mexican, and he doesn't speak Spanish. And he said, man, he goes, Google Translate. I'm just got my phone. I'm talking in it, and it plays. And I'm like, oh, see, yes. And and so I think that's what I would lean on if we make it through.
I don't know, man. I think this technology thing's here to stay. I don't know if it's going away.
Yeah. Learn a language.
You mentioned LP investments earlier, and I often get asked, because I'm an LP investor in a lot of different things, as well as have my own personal portfolio, as well as like sponsor to the deals that we do. I'm interested to hear, like, how did you end up in that LP position? Why do you take LP positions if you are actively in this space? Could you talk us through that a bit?
Yeah, so I absolutely suck at finding deals. I mean, I just I don't know. Maybe I don't put in the effort that other people do, or not willing to put in the effort. But I struggle to find really really good deals that hit our criteria. And so what I've discovered, and I had to get over my fear of partnering with other people to make this happen, right? And one way that I've done that is I basically established a partnership criteria. It's not something that you hear a lot of people talk about in the space. You know, there's a lot of focus on, hey, what's your investing criteria? Um, but part establishing a partnership criteria and having those guidelines or boundaries that you don't go outside of has really helped me be okay with partnering, but b we've had a lot of success with it. And essentially the same reason why we created the hard money lending solution is there was folks in the community really good at finding deals, didn't know how to navigate or operate with private or hard money. And I just kind of paid attention. I was like, okay, well, you guys are really good at finding deals. I've got some cash. Why don't I just invest in your deal? I trust you. I've gotten to know you for a couple of years now. Um, I like the deal. More importantly, I trust you. And that's kind of so. I just realized that I would you know I just I'm not very good at finding deals, and it's just this is it. So I discovered, okay, I can be an LP, and then once one does fall in my lap, which is essentially what it'd have to do, I could be an operator. You know, I could be a joint general partner or joint venture, and being the managing member of a joint venture. So, but that's
Yeah.
how we ended up being limited partners. Yeah.
I love your idea of partnership criteria. People think that you're looking for in a partner or a general partner or somebody operating the deal. I think it's probably one of the most underrated things that needs to
Oh
be
yeah.
looked at. People are always looking at the returns, which returns can be manipulated very easily. People are looking at the
Oh yeah.
market, which I agree, a good market can save a bad deal. But ultimately, like, who are you dealing with and how are they going to deal with difficult situations is something that I think a lot of
Yeah.
LPs are finding over the past 2 years. So I guess help us
Yeah.
understand, like, how did you decide your partnership criteria? And maybe if you
Mm.
could, like, what are your partnership guidelines?
So it's very much like our investing criteria. It develops over time, right? So the more that we do, the more partnerships we'll learn something from one and be like, okay, we're going forward. We're probably gonna, this is gonna be on our radar when we look at that. So very basic, because I don't know about you, Matt, but my social media feed gets bombarded with, "Hey Jay, I got a deal. I want to partner with you on it." I'm like, okay, and usually most people who do that, they don't pass this first filtration process where I'll respond to them. I'll say, look, I don't, one of my partnership criteria is I don't partner with anybody that I don't know for at least 6 months. Right. And this is not, we have a phone call today, we have a phone call in 6 months, and all of a sudden we're going to be general partners together or joint venture. I really got to get to know you, and that's a minimum mark, right? And so I would tell people that who message and say, "Hey, I want to partner on a deal." Like, I'll say, "Look, I hear you. Thank you for the opportunity. Happy to look at this one with you, but just so you know, like, I don't feel like I know you well enough. Let's get to know each other and let's work through the underwriting of this with the idea that we're going to do something in the future, right?" Most people will respond politely, "Yeah, that sounds great," and that's where the conversation ends. There's never
Never
any
follow
follow
up.
up or anything like that. Yeah, and so that's one thing. I got to really get to know you. Um, now I'm to the point where they've got to have done at least one deal. Like one general. They've had to at least be a general partner, just to prove that they could do something. Like they've got one, not necessarily be a general partner, but they've got one property in their portfolio, right? I'm sorry, newbies. There's a whole plethora of information out there for you to get your first deal done, and so it's one of those things where I look at it and be like, if they haven't done that yet, like how, and we've probably missed on some opportunities, but we also have avoided a lot of headaches, right?
Yeah.
And so that's those. those are the two biggest things. But then the third one is um, most people find interesting. A lot of people laugh. Some people get offended. My wife hates when I mention this because she's afraid I'm going to offend somebody. I'm like, well, they don't have to partner with us, and they also don't have to adopt this as part of their criteria. But if you've been divorced more than twice, like if you're on your third spouse, it's a deal killer, right? And two reasons for that is number one, either either A, you don't know how to treat people, right? Because it's a marriage. When you do a partnership on a big multifamily or any kind of joint venture, small, medium, doesn't matter. It's a marriage for at least one of you on the property. So either A, you don't know how to treat people, or B, you just don't know really how to make big life decisions. And neither one of those do I want to have to deal with. We just got to a point where we don't have to deal with that. You know what I mean? And so those are the top three, right? Got to get to know you. Got to know see how you interact with your spouse and or kids. Um, you've had to at least have a deal done, and then you can't be divorced more than twice. I did initially. I said, well, I can't use anybody or partner with anybody that has been divorced. I was like, some people get married young. Some people
Yeah.
make mistakes. That's fair. Everybody deserves a right to start over if they need to. But if there's a pattern that's developed there, then there's something going on that we just don't have to. Um, we're at the point where we don't have to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I don't disagree with that. I think once is kind of you gotten married early and maybe you weren't on the same path at 22 that you are at 30 or something like that. It's crazy to
Yeah.
me that some of these business people get married like 4 or 5 times, and it's like, well, clearly you are shooting by the hip.
What?
And yeah, and to your point, like how do you treat people you're partnerships with if your life partner it hasn't worked out
Yeah.
several different times? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned the W2 Capitalist Group, which, by the way, I said this on the first episode. I'll say it again. By far the best name in this industry I've ever heard. So
Thank you.
I wish I could steal that from you, but I'm sure you have it patented at this point. But um, you mentioned, being a part of a group, and I've joined a couple different groups over my tenure, and I don't think I've resented or been upset that I've joined any sort of group. However, there is a massive difference in the kind of growth that you get as an individual being a part of different groups, where some are not all are treated equal, some are definitely better than others. So I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you could talk us through this idea of how do you go identify a group that you want to be around? And then I want to talk through, like, obviously you're still doing deals, we're still doing deals, people in your group are still doing deals. How are they doing
Yeah.
deals right now in this type of environment? So kick us off at the first one around, W2 capitalists. How do we go identify what groups to be a part of?
Yeah. And so I had this presentation. I should try to find it real quick. But there are five things really you need to think about when you're entering into a group in any sort of community way. And you really want to find one that fits your style, right? And so if you're an extroverted person and you know that about yourself, um, and you know you're going to have the best success when you're physically around people and around a lot of new people, then you need to look for a community that meets in person and that gets, and has a lot of members. Right now, I say a lot. So we keep the W2 Capitalists very boutique, and because I'm an introvert and I love growing relationships that we have, I've partnered with over a half a dozen people inside the community, and everybody inside of our community, almost everybody, has partnered with somebody else. And so, and it's because they get to know one another, right? And so you gotta, when you're looking at a community, you gotta figure out, okay, am I okay with meeting online, or do I need to be in person? Really, what we've seen, or what I've seen, is it really comes down to somebody's personality type. Extroverts, like we meet primarily virtual. We've done 2 live in-person events. There have been some what I call unsanctioned events where members discover, okay, we're in the same city for whatever reason, let's get together. But it's the extroverts who continuously push me to have another in-person event, which I hate doing, and they know that I hate doing them. So you got to know that about yourself, right? The other thing is, do you want to be a part of a group where there's thousands of users and you're looking really just to get some feedback from individuals? Or are you looking for a real solid connection where you can really grow a relationship with a core group of folks? Um, and those are the two biggest things. And then you got to figure out, okay, am I getting into it just for the community, or am I looking for educational stuff as well? And for most people, it's both, right? Like they want the educational piece, but they also want to get involved in the community. And then, like our new focus for 2024 is we're focused on busy parents who have closed at least one property or hold at least one property in their portfolio. Um, and I've been having a lot of calls with folks saying, "Hey, this is what we're getting into," and I'm just again paying attention to what the community's saying and doing. Most people in there are married. Out of that subset group, uh, the vast majority of them have kids or are on their way to have kids, and a lot of our conversations are about struggles that come with being a spouse, being a parent, and like last night we one of our members recently, he's a new dad, about a month and a half. And so for about 20 minutes, the people on the call were like, "Hey, you're probably not even going to remember being on this call by tomorrow." Because he
Yeah.
goes, "No," because I ain't been here for a while because we've been dealing with all this, trying to get everything ready because it's great to be here. It's great to be back. He said, "But yeah, I don't really remember what happened like last week, and
Yeah.
so, but we all got to give him a little bit of advice, and I get on there and get to vent about my kids and, and stuff like that, and other parents do too. So it's more of to answer your question, you want to find folks who there's some other commonality around you than just real estate investing, right?
Yep.
There are tons of, one could argue the market's saturated with tons of communities for real estate investors. But there's got to, I encourage people to find some other little thing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not a big car guy, but maybe it's real estate investing and car enthusiast,
Yeah.
something like that, or so something else. Because when you have that additional connection, it's going to further motivate you and encourage you to be part of the community, and that's where personal growth happens. Right? Is when you continuously engage with folks who are on the same path as you. And believe it or not, you just being involved in that community is going to motivate them to do others. And I hear from members all the time that, especially now the way that we're traveling and whatnot, they will, uh, unsolicited. I can't even say that word.
Mm-hmm.
They would just basically come out of nowhere and be like, "Hey, we're taking this trip. It's like 2 weeks in Europe, 2 weeks in Northeast U.S. And just want to say you encourage us to do that because we see what you're doing with your family." I'm like,
That's
okay,
cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool to hear. And so yeah, you gotta there's got to be something other than just real estate to
Yeah.
connect you there.
Earlier this year, I joined a group called Front Row Dads, and their whole
Yeah,
tagline is family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. And I
yeah,
think that kind of hits along the same lines because everyone I spoke about it a lot. Like I know a bunch of people in my circle who are great dads, but don't really care about dominating the world. And I know a bunch of people
yeah,
who are great at dominating the world, but consider taking care of their kids and being with their kids as babysitting. And I'm trying to
yeah.
find a mix of both. I feel like it's my
Mm,
job to be a role model and to help guide, but also like I still have ambition to go do some big things. And so to
yeah,
your point around finding two separate things, like that's been awesome because I can ask like different, how do you do this for marketing? What are you guys doing from a leverage standpoint in
yeah.
these real estate deals, all those sorts of things. But then I get to say, man, we had a knockdown drag out fight this morning over not wanting bagels and wanting pancakes instead. And, how do you deal with that sort of thing? So
Yeah,
you sound like you can relate to
yeah.
that.
Oh man, I fear the day where I forget that I'm on a Zoom call and I don't hit the mute button and I yell at one of my kids and
Yeah, yeah,
somebody hears the way that that dad voice that comes out. Like I don't know. Like I'm pretty like my wife is the caretaker and the lover, and I'm very much the disciplinary. And they respond differently to us because of that, and but I get in these moments, and working from home, and you got three kids under 9 running around. It's a struggle. It's a challenge, and I'm learning to deal with it. I'm
yeah.
year 3 into this with working from home full time, and having all of them home full time, and um, I'm learning that noise canceling headphones are, man, they like. I don't know why more parenting magazines don't like, hey, if you're working from home, you've got to have these. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things, and I've learned to remove myself from certain situations and be like, all right, Cassie, my wife,
Yeah.
um,
Tap in.
you got to deal with this. I'm going for a
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like to say too, never judge a parent's reaction or action in a certain moment because you have no idea what they've been dealing with all day. And you're at
Yeah,
Target or
yeah,
whatever, and you see some mom or dad kind of snap at their kids, and you're like, "Oh man, that's awful. I never talk to my kid that way." And you're like, "Yeah, you kind of do,
yeah.
but you just
I
are."
do.
Hey, fellow investors, before we dive into our next segment of the show, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about a fantastic opportunity for you to invest with me. As you know, here at Ice Cream with Investors, I'm passionate about real estate investing and helping you navigate the exciting world of wealth creation through real estate. And that's why, for the first time, I'm thrilled to tell you about an opportunity for you to invest alongside of me. Over the past 3 years, I've been investing in multifamily, mobile home parks, car washes. I've even become the bank and lent out money to fellow real estate investors on a short-term basis. And now you can come join me. If you would like to jump on a call and learn more about this opportunity, head to icecreamwithinvestors.com/invest and find a time for us to connect. And now back to the show.
Yeah.
I've been that guy in Walmart or wherever. I've been that guy, and my wife just kind of drooped her head and just has accepted that's the way I'm going to be a parent. But um, it's just life sometimes. And here's a habit I'm trying to break, Matt, is that I'll have, and I've done a good job of it the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's because Elfie showed up, and I want to make sure he reports to Santa that I've been doing good. But he, so prior to that, I would have this blow up moment, and I would have to, remove myself from the family, and I come back and I apologize, and I'm okay with apologizing. What I don't want the habit to be created is the kids just expecting that, okay, well, here goes dad
Yeah.
blowing up. He's going to take a few minutes and come back and apologize. I'm like, that's not the habit. And one of the things that I forget, and I don't know why, but we're trying to encourage our youngest, who's 4, to get into gymnastics with her sister. And she's the most athletic out of all 3 of them, right? But she doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, I don't want to force her to do it, because if she's not interested, she's not interested. But she's just being shy, right? And so I was like, I asked my wife, I was like, how do we like get her into doing it? And she goes, well, she is just 4. And it's like, solid point. Solid
Yeah.
point. She's 4.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
going to come, maybe it doesn't. We're not going to force her. And, so I don't know, being a parent is interesting.
Yeah, I'd say it's the most rewarding yet challenging thing I've ever done. Speaking of the blowing up
By
though, like
far. Yeah.
I I almost have the reverse problem. I don't say anything when I'm upset and getting agitated, and then it kind of comes
Mm,
to a tipping point where I have to then go remove myself from the situation and go for a walk or something
yeah.
like that. Instead of like one thing that I'm practicing now is, yesterday I folded up a blanket, we were going to bed, son gets upset, he takes the blanket and throws it on the floor. And normally I wouldn't say anything about that, but I was like, no, 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 wait a minute. I just did that for the family and
Yeah.
you destroyed that. Like, first of all, why would you do that? And trying to
Yeah.
address it then. So I don't know.
Well, I've found, I probably communicate more openly with our children than most parents, and to the point like we're having a little party um, this weekend, and my son had this list of folks he wanted to invite, kids his age and whatnot, and we didn't invite one of the kids on the list, and he found out about it, and he said why. He asked me why, and I said, well, from what I've been around that kid, um, he is not going to be a good influence on you. And I want you to be around children who are a good influence on you. And what I mean by that is what short amount of time I've been around him, I've seen him back talk to his parents, not to the point where he was joking, like it was yelling and screaming. He's back talked to me when I was just trying to help him out with something. I was like, that is not somebody who I want you to
Yep.
hang around. Now, maybe that's me being a little bit of a helicopter parent, but the point of it, my son sat there for a minute and goes, I didn't even think about that. I didn't know all that had happened. He goes, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
9. And I'm like, man, are we blessed?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it takes it one step further that he knows that that's on my mind as a parent to make sure he's, grows up with the right influences around him. And the rest of the kids, I think, that are coming, he now recognizes that, they are respectful, and I get to hang out with other cool people who are also respectful of their parents. And, there's a couple of movies that have come out recently, like with Disney and whatnot, that have not teaching the values and things that we want to teach our kids, and they want to go and see them. And they're like, well, why? I was like, we're not going to watch this movie. We're not, buying it. We don't subscribe to that platform. We're not doing it. Why? Why, Daddy? Why not? I was like, well, and this was around Halloween, and all the commercials for the scary Halloween movies come on with, hey, turn your head, turn your head, turn your head. Don't watch. And so I had to explain to him. I said, well, you know how when those scary movies come on and I tell you to turn your head, it's like, the reason we do that is because we're trying to protect you from seeing something that's very scary and is going to alter the way you see things. Like, okay, well, there are certain things in those movies that are going to alter the way you see things, and we don't think you're ready for that yet. And we want to make sure that it's not necessarily time to do that if it's ever, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, okay. And then they haven't asked to go see those movies again. So I'm very open and transparent with our kids. And I feel like we have a stronger bond, and they understand, why. Like, one of the things I love to do with them is we'll go to any store and hey, I want this. Okay. Did you bring any money? Well, no. Okay. Well, tell me why you want it. Sell me on the idea of why I should buy that for you. Right. And depending on if I want to buy it to them, like, I'm convinced they're going to get upset and they're going to cry either way. Right.
Yeah.
So if they're going to cry, then make them go through the mental exercise of formulating a sales plan. Right. And trying to market to why I should buy this for them. And they don't get it. They don't understand what I'm doing. They feel like I'm just being mean or whatever. But later on, they're going to understand Dad was training me to be in sales, or training me
Yep.
to convince, realize that I can't just get anything in this world just because I say, hey, I want it. Now,
Yep.
the girls probably will at some point in time in their life, right? They'll be like, hey, I want this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. 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 We're big on, like, what could you do to earn money to go do this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's come up with that game plan first. And if it's chores, or our son set up a lemonade stand, dude, he made $35 in like 30 minutes. It was insane. It's the most
That's
profitable
awesome.
lemonade. And his cost of goods sold were 0 because it was our lemonade and everything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that just set in motion, like, this idea of, if you want something that's expensive, well, let's go figure a way that you can do
Yeah.
sell something, add value to the world to accomplish that, to make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's cool.
I want to be cognizant of your time. We haven't even had a chance to kind of talk through, like, growth in your community. What are you seeing right now? So everybody's talking about difficult market and nothing pencils and all those sorts of things. But you mentioned you're doing deals. People are doing deals in your community. We're doing deals. What are you seeing out there that helps investors get past that limited belief so that they can go be successful in this type of a market?
Yeah, and as somebody mentioned last night on one of our mastermind calls that deals are no longer handed out on a silver platter, right? So they are more difficult to come by, and what we're seeing is the people who are the most active in our community are the ones that are doing deals, and not only doing deals for the heck of it, but just doing deals that hit their criteria and finding deals that are hitting their criteria. And it goes down to where they're spending their time. They're constantly having conversations with investors. I mean, you said earlier that you feel like your most productive part of the day is when you're talking to other investors, right? And so my daughter came in here about 7:30 this morning and said, "Hey, can we have a dance party?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I just sat down with coffee. I'm not ready to do a dance yet." And I was like, "I tell you what, I've got to get on this phone call, and I'll be done with phone calls about 2 o'clock this afternoon. We'll do a dance party then, right?" And realizing that there are 6 phone calls between 8 and 2 that are just, and this one included, where we're just talking about investing. And so here's the exercise that I totally stole from Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, right? And so you get out a sheet of paper, right? So put 2 columns at the top. On the left hand side, put growth friends. On the right hand side, put maintenance relationships. And for the sake of this exercise, growth friends are labeled as people who you consistently talk about wealth building, real estate investing, growing your portfolio, being a better parent, better spouse, things, legacy wealth. So those are in the growth friends category. Everybody else, okay, I don't care if it's your mom, brother, dad, sister, whoever, everybody else goes into maintenance relationships, right? If you're having these conversations, these growth friends, growth conversations with your siblings or your parents, then they would stay in the growth friends column. But the way you do this is you get out your phone, right, and you go to your most recent phone conversation, most recent. I don't even know what it's called on an iPhone because I don't ever call anybody except for my wife. But you go to your most recent dials, right, and you go down through the last 25 or 30 phone calls that you've had, and based on those definitions, you put the person's name either in the growth friends or maintenance relationships column. And the majority of people, almost 100% of the time, when they're come to me and they're complaining about growth and whatnot, and we do this exercise, they get to it, and I can even see the look on the face because a lot of times we do this over Zoom, and I was like, you don't even have to tell me how your sheet of paper looks, but I'm going to tell you that you're heavy on maintenance relationships. And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, here's how you change that, right? Everybody gets a lunch hour. You take 30 minutes of your lunch hour, you make 2 phone calls. You make 2 solid connections during that lunch hour. You're talking to somebody about investing, legacy wealth, growing your portfolio. It could be a broker. It could be a 5-minute phone call introduction. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, but those are going to be your topics of conversations. And in 6 months, their whole phone history is completely changed. That idea of I can't grow, I'm stuck, all this other stuff is gone, right? And they're on the verge. If they haven't closed a couple of deals, they're on the verge of closing something that hits their criteria, right? And then so it's in the technology world we refer to it as garbage in, garbage out, right? So let's just change that to uh, really good inputs in to really good inputs out, and it's so simple. It blows folks' minds when they go through this and they start doing it, right? And so where the W2 capitalist community comes in is folks who they run down through their phone book. Most people are going to have 150, 200 people in their phone book. I've got a couple thousand because I did an import one time and it went really bad and I don't know how to clean it up. But most of those people in their phone book, they don't they don't, they have friends who are maintenance relationships. They don't want to talk about investing. They think it's crazy. They don't think they can do it. And when you're around people like that, yeah, um,
Hmm.
you're going to be struck with, hey, I can't do it. Market's inflated, interest rates are high. I can't find this. I ran into this deal. I own a fourplex. Property next door was being renovated. There was a guy outside working. I was over there. I was waiting on my contractor to show up, and I just struck up the conversation with the guy. I was like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" Told him who I was, and asked him what he had going on. He goes, "Well, I'm repairing this. They're getting ready to go on the market and whatnot." Long story short, um, this is a single family home, very small. The buyers or sellers were wanting 130 for it, and very nice family. Basically, the mom who lived there had a stroke, and she had to move in with a daughter, and they were just trying to get rid of the property, right? And they were cleaning it up, they were making it look nice, and I wanted it to as a rental, right? I wanted it next door, and I said, "Hey, I underwrote this, and interest rates are just killing me. It's like I'm not able to do it." And so I said, I have a price, but I don't want to offend you because it's nowhere near what you're asking. And she said, well, and eventually we talked for another 5, 10 minutes, and she eventually said, well, tell me your number because I'm just curious. I was like, well, it's 75. That's where I'm at. Instantly, no, we can't take it. We can't do it. And so we hung up. I texted her later on that night and said, "Hey, here's my offer again with a couple of seller financing options that I know y'all said y'all weren't doing or interested in doing." The next day, she messaged me back. Now remember, their ask was 130, and I offered 75. She goes, "Can you do 85?" And I was like, "I can't do 85. I can do 78 if you split closing costs with me." And she said, "No." She goes, "I can't do that." Well, fast forward to yesterday, I was on a call with an investor. I was telling him the story, and he goes, "Man, that's some really solid numbers. What if you tried to flip that?" Right? And I was like, "Didn't even cross my mind. Didn't even cross my mind. I wanted to flip it." So I immediately after that, I contacted two folks. One was for me to potentially wholesale it to them. The other one was to potentially partner with a guy to flip it. Um, and I messaged her last night and I said, "Hey, is 85 still a good number?" And so she unfortunately has it under contract right now with somebody else. So I missed the ball. But the idea
Yep.
of, there are deals out there. Don't be afraid to shoot your shot. And I wouldn't have thought of trying to flip it or wholesale it if I wouldn't have been talking to the mastermind member yesterday.
Yep.
We were just having a conversation. So it really comes down to who you're spending your time with and talking to.
I,
Um,
I, I love
that's a
that
big thing.
idea of growth and maintenance. I mean, one of the things that I've kind of done over the past 18 months is really not spend as much time trying to chase down maintenance friends, even to the point
Yeah,
of, we had this obligation. Do you want to go on Sunday night or on Saturday night to go hang out with these groups of friends? And I said, no, I don't. And the reason
yeah,
being is because I'm sick. I'm tired, and ultimately, like, that's not who I want to go spend my time with when I want to go spend time. So I'm going to sit here and rest, recoup, so that I can be more focused when I have a conversation with you or some of those
good
other
for you.
growth friends in my network. So yeah, it's tough. I know it's tough, and a lot of people listen to that would be like, well, I can't cut off Billy Bob because I've known him since I was 12. No one's saying cut him off. No one's saying you got to go tell him he's a bad person. You just aren't chasing them down to maintain that relationship. You're just checking in on the holidays or answering their calls, but ultimately you're trying to chase down people that are going to help you grow.
You're not initiating it. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Right. Well, Jay, fantastic conversation. I want to be cognizant of your time here. You have done the famous four or the four toppings a couple of times, so we'll skip those today, and we'll just end you with the last question we ask everybody: is if our listeners wanted to
Okay.
reach out to you and learn more about you, get connected with you, learn more about the W2 capitalists, where is the best place we can point them?
So best thing to do is just text me on my cell. and I would say call me, but my phone is set up to where if you're not programmed into my phone, then it's going to go straight to voicemail anyway. So text me, and so my cell phone is 205-249-0248. And I'm comfortable giving that out because only the action takers, like the true people who want to do something, potentially partner on a deal or talk about growth friends or whatnot, it's a very small percentage, right? And something that's been echoed to me, even again last night as we were on the wrapping up our mastermind call. It was like, Jay, you make yourself available to us, and that's so different than any other community that I've been a part of. And they were expressing thanks, and I was like, okay, thank you. I don't know how to take a compliment, but thank you. So
Well,
um,
we
but
will
man, I've
not leave
enjoyed it,
those in the
man.
show notes. We will tell people in the show notes to go listen to the show and find it at the end on the best way to reach out to you. How
There you
about
go.
that?
That's a good teaser. I appreciate it, Matt. And Bucky's thanks you too, because when I go back to Mobile in a couple of weeks, I'll be stopping because of you.
There you go. They can click my link down below to subscribe and send me my affiliate commission then.
There you go.
All right, Jay.
Love it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for listening to Ice Cream with Investors. If you like what we serve you here, it would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.